"What are you doing here?" The voice cut through the silence like a blade, and I froze. My hands were still tangled in the mess of wires behind the gaming console, my toolbox scattered across the expensive hardwood floor. Slowly, I lifted my gaze, and what I saw made my breath catch in my throat. Standing in the doorway was a man who looked like he'd walked straight out of a magazine cover. Tall, with a jawline sharp enough to cut glass. Dressed in a perfectly tailored gray suit that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. His eyes dark, intense, calculating, fixed on me with an authority that made my knees weak. This was Bruce Callaway. The Bruce Callaway, CEO of Callaway Industries, billionaire, and apparently my newest source of absolute panic. I'm just Ronnie Hayes, a 24-year-old tech repair guy who fixes broken gadgets for a living. I drive from house to house in my beat-up Honda, carrying my worn toolbox, hoping each job pays enough to cover my bills. When I got the call this morning for a console repair at this address, I thought it would be just another routine job. Maybe an hour of work, $50, and I'd be on my way. But standing here now, in this mansion that probably had more square footage than my entire apartment building, facing this man who radiated power and wealth, I felt like I'd accidentally stumbled into a world where I absolutely didn't belong. "I'm fixing the console, sir," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "Your son, Owen," he called the service center. The console wasn't turning on properly. Bruce took a step forward, and somehow the massive room felt smaller. "Owen didn't inform me anyone was coming," he said, his voice deep and measured, each word deliberate. The way he looked at me like he was trying to figure out whether I was a threat or just incompetent made my pulse race for all the wrong reasons. I scrambled to my feet, nearly tripping over the console in my haste. "I swear, sir, I'm just here to do the job. Look, here's my ID." My hands trembled as I pulled out my work identification card and held it toward him. My heart was hammering so hard against my ribs that I was certain he could hear it. Bruce crossed the room in 3 long strides and took the card from my hand. The brief moment when his fingers brushed against mine sent an unexpected jolt through my entire body, like touching a live wire. I jerked my hand back as if I'd been burned. He studied the card with the same intensity he'd used on me, his expression unreadable. Those few seconds felt like an eternity. Finally, he let out a long breath. "Next time," he said, handing the card back, "make sure I'm informed before you enter my home. My assistant should have contacted me." "Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. I'm really sorry about this," I said quickly, already reaching for my tools. Every instinct screamed at me to pack up and get out of there as fast as possible. But just as I started gathering my equipment, his voice stopped me. "Is it fixed?" I paused mid-reach. "Almost. Just need another 2 minutes to complete the final connections. Then finish it." There was no room for argument in his tone. I sank back down to my knees, acutely aware that he hadn't moved. He stood there by the door, arms crossed over his chest, watching me work with an intensity that made it impossible to concentrate. My hands shook as I connected the last few wires. Sweat began to bead on my forehead despite the perfectly climate-controlled room. I could feel his gaze on me like a physical weight. Every movement I made felt clumsy and awkward under that scrutiny. When I finally connected the last wire and powered on the console, I'd never felt more relieved in my entire life. The screen flickered to life, displaying the startup menu in perfect clarity. "Done," I announced, getting to my feet and brushing off my jeans. Bruce moved closer, leaning down to inspect the screen. Suddenly he was right there, so close I could smell his cologne, something expensive and woody with hints of bergamot and cedar. The scent was intoxicating in a way that made my head spin. I held my breath, trying not to think about how the warmth of his body seemed to radiate toward me. "Good work," he said, straightening up. "What do I owe you?" $50, sir." He pulled out a leather wallet. Of course it was leather, probably Italian, and extracted a crisp $100 bill. "Keep the change." "Sir, I can get you change. My car's right outside." I said keep it. The finality in his voice left no room for protest. I took the bill with fingers that still weren't quite steady. "Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it." Bruce stepped aside, a silent indication that I was free to leave. I grabbed my toolbox with perhaps more haste than necessary and headed for the door. My entire body felt wound tight with tension, and all I wanted was to get outside where I could breathe properly again. But just as I crossed the threshold, his voice called out once more, "Ronnie." Hearing my name from his lips made me stop dead in my tracks. I turned around slowly, meeting those intense dark eyes. "You're good at what you do," Bruce said, and there was something different in his tone now, softer, almost approving. "Owen's been frustrated with that console for nearly a week. You fixed it in under an hour." "Thank you, sir," I managed to say, even as my brain short-circuited from the unexpected compliment. Then he smiled. It was just a small upturn of his lips, barely there, but it transformed his entire face. The stern CEO melted away for just a moment, replaced by something warmer, more human, and that smile hit me harder than anything that had come before it, making my stomach do a complicated flip that I absolutely did not want to analyze. I practically fled from the house, my toolbox banging against my leg as I hurried down the marble steps. The fresh autumn air hit my face, cool and grounding, but my mind was still spinning. I threw my equipment in the trunk of my car and sat in the driver's seat for a full minute, just breathing. It was just a job. A simple, straightforward repair job. I'd done hundreds of them. There was absolutely no reason for my heart to still be racing like I'd just run a marathon. No reason for my hands to still be shaking. No reason for me to be replaying the way his voice had sounded when he said my name, or the way his smile had made something warm unfurl in my chest. As I drove away from that massive mansion with its perfect landscaping and its powerful, intimidating owner, I told myself I'd never see Bruce Callaway again. It was just one job, one bizarre encounter, and tomorrow I'd be back to fixing laptops and smartphones for regular people in regular houses. But even as I tried to convince myself of that, some part of me knew I was lying. Something had shifted in that room, something I couldn't quite name. And deep down, in a place I wasn't ready to acknowledge, I knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The next morning started like any other. I woke up to the sound of my neighbor's dog barking through the thin walls of my apartment, made instant coffee because the fancy stuff was too expensive, and checked my phone for the day's repair appointments. 3 jobs lined up: a laptop with a virus, a tablet with a cracked screen, and a desktop that wouldn't boot. Standard Tuesday stuff. I was halfway through my coffee when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. 90% of unknown calls were spam, but something made me answer. "Hello? Is this Ronnie Hayes?" A woman's voice, crisp and professional, with the kind of polished tone that spoke of expensive education and corporate training. "Speaking. This is Sarah Chen, Mr. Callaway's executive assistant. Mr. Callaway would like to discuss a potential opportunity with you. Would you be available this afternoon at 2? I nearly dropped my phone into my coffee. "Mr. Callaway? Bruce Callaway?" "Yes. He was extremely impressed with your work yesterday. He'd like to offer you a position as his personal technology consultant. The compensation would be a monthly retainer of $5,000, plus additional payment for any major projects." $5,000. My brain stuttered to a halt. I currently made maybe $2,000 a month if I hustled hard and got lucky with jobs. 5,000 was more than double that. It was the kind of money that could change my life, pay off my student loans, maybe even save for something better than my crumbling apartment. You serious?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "Completely serious, Mr. Hayes. Mr. Callaway doesn't make offers lightly." "So 2 o'clock? Same address as yesterday?" "Yes. Absolutely. I'll be there." I was nodding even though she couldn't see me, my heart already racing with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. "Excellent. I'll inform Mr. Callaway. Please bring any necessary equipment for home theater diagnostics. That's the first project he'd like you to assess." The call ended, and I sat there staring at my phone like it had just transformed into something alien. This couldn't be real. People like Bruce Callaway didn't just hire random repair guys for $5,000 a month. Did they? Maybe this was some elaborate prank. Maybe I'd show up and find out it was all a mistake. But at 1:30 I found myself pulling up to those same imposing gates, my toolbox restocked and my hands clammy with nerves. This time, the security guard waved me through without even asking my name apparently. I was expected. That small detail made it feel more real and more terrifying. The front door opened before I could knock, revealing a kid with messy brown hair and bright, curious eyes. He couldn't have been more than 12, wearing a gaming tournament t-shirt and a huge grin. "You're the console guy," he announced excitedly. "Dad said you fixed it in like, no time at all." "That's so cool. I'm Owen." His enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself relaxing slightly. "Hey Owen." "Yeah, that was me. Your console's working fine now?" "Perfect. Dad said you're going to be fixing stuff around here all the time now." "The theater system's been acting weird. The sound gets all echoey during explosions." "Come on, I'll show you." He grabbed my arm and pulled me through the mansion with the unself-conscious energy of a kid who'd grown up in luxury but somehow hadn't let it make him entitled. We wound through hallways that probably cost more to decorate than I'd earn in 5 years. Finally arriving at a home theater that made commercial cinemas look shabby. Plush velvet seats, arranged in stadium-style rows. A screen that dominated an entire wall. And there, sitting in one of the middle seats with a tablet in his hands, was Bruce. Today he wasn't wearing a suit. Instead, he'd dressed in a black turtleneck and dark jeans. The kind of calculated casual that probably required more thought than most people's formal wear. Somehow he looked even more intimidating this way. The turtleneck emphasized the strong column of his throat and the breadth of his shoulders. He looked up as we entered, and those intense eyes locked onto mine immediately. "Ronnie, thank you for coming on such short notice." "Of course, Mr. Callaway." I was proud that my voice came out steady. "Owen, homework," Bruce said, his tone gentle but firm. "But I want to watch Ronnie fix stuff. Now, please." Owen groaned dramatically but complied, shooting me a sympathetic look as he left. The door clicked shut behind him, and suddenly the massive theater felt impossibly small. It was just me and Bruce in this dimmed space, surrounded by empty seats and the faint hum of expensive electronics. "Sarah told you about the retainer?" Bruce asked, setting his tablet aside and standing up. "Yes, sir. I have to say, I'm honored. But I'm not sure why you'd want to hire me specifically. There are plenty of tech companies that handle this kind of thing for wealthy clients." He moved closer, his footsteps silent on the carpeted floor. "I don't trust easily, Ronnie. Most people who come into my home are looking for something, a connection, a favor, information they can sell. But yesterday you were just focused on doing the job well. No small talk, no networking attempts, no asking about my business. Just honest work." I was actually just terrified, I admitted before I could think better of it. That surprised a laugh out of him, a genuine sound that transformed his face completely. "Fair enough, I can have that effect. But here's the thing, I need someone I can trust around my home. Around my son. Someone skilled, discreet, and reliable." "You impressed me. So are you interested?" Was I interested in earning more than double my current income? In having financial stability for the first time since I'd graduated college? In getting to work in a beautiful mansion instead of cramped apartments and cluttered offices? "Yes," I said. "Definitely yes." "Good. Now about this theater system." The next 2 hours flew by as I diagnosed the audio issues. The problem turned out to be in the calibration settings and some interference from the wireless speakers. Bruce stayed the entire time, sometimes working on his tablet, sometimes on phone calls, but I could feel his attention drifting back to me repeatedly. Whenever I glanced his way, he was either looking at me or had just looked away. It should have been uncomfortable, but instead it felt almost electric. Like standing near something powerful and trying not to get burned. When I finished the calibration and ran a test scene, an action movie with plenty of explosions, the sound was perfect. Crystal clear dialogue, immersive surround effects, bass that rumbled through your chest without overwhelming everything else. "Impressive," Bruce said, and the approval in his voice made something warm bloom in my chest. "You really do know what you're doing." "Just experience," I said, starting to pack up my tools. "No." He stood up and moved closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back slightly to maintain eye contact. "It's more than that. You love this work. I can see it in how carefully you handle everything, how you explain what you're doing. That kind of passion is rare." My mouth went dry. We were standing too close. Close enough that I could see the faint lines at the corners of his eyes, the slight stubble along his jaw. Close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. "I should go," I heard myself say, even though moving was the last thing I wanted to do. Sarah will send you the contract and a schedule, Bruce said, but he didn't step back. Thank you, Ronnie, for saying yes. I left that theater in a daze, my toolbox feeling weightless despite its usual heft. As I walked through those grand hallways toward the exit, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just agreed to something much more complicated than a simple job. And the scariest part, I was looking forward to coming back. 2 weeks passed in a blur of work at the Callaway mansion. I came 3 or 4 times a week, tackling everything from Owen's gaming setup upgrades, to smart home system troubleshooting to security camera maintenance. Each job was different, each day brought new challenges, and I loved every minute of it. But what I hadn't expected was how much Bruce would be around. At first, I thought it was coincidence. I'd be working in the study and he'd come in to grab a file. I'd be fixing kitchen appliances and he'd appear to make coffee. But after the 4th or 5th time, I realized it wasn't random. He was seeking me out, finding excuses to be in whatever room I was working in. Sometimes he'd bring me coffee without asking. Always made perfectly with just the right amount of cream, which meant he'd been paying attention. Sometimes he'd just lean against the doorframe and watch me work, his presence a constant awareness at the edge of my consciousness. And sometimes he'd ask questions that had nothing to do with the repairs I was doing. Where did you grow up, Ronnie? What made you choose tech repair? Do you have family in the city? I answered honestly, probably more honestly than I should have. I told him about growing up in a small town in Ohio, about my mom who worked 2 jobs to put me through community college, about how I'd always been the kid who took things apart to see how they worked. He listened like every word mattered, like my ordinary life was somehow fascinating to him. It was dangerous, this growing closeness. He was my employer. He was a billionaire CEO with a son and responsibilities I couldn't even imagine. And I was just the repair guy, someone who'd stumbled into his life by accident. But when he looked at me with those intense eyes, when he smiled at something I said, when his hand brushed mine as he passed me a tool, all of that logic melted away. On Friday evening, I was finishing up a kitchen appliance repair. The smart refrigerator had been having connectivity issues, when Bruce appeared in the doorway. But something was different this time. He looked uncertain, almost vulnerable, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. Ronnie, wait, before you go. I set down my tools and turned to face him fully. Is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong. He paused, seeming to search for words, which was strange for someone who usually spoke with such confidence. I wanted to ask you something, and you're free to say no. There's no pressure. My heart started beating faster. Okay, tomorrow is Owen's birthday. We're having a small celebration, just close family and a couple of friends. Nothing too formal. I was wondering if you'd like to join us. The question caught me completely off guard. You want me at your son's birthday party? Owen asks about you constantly. You're good with him, patient. And honestly, I'd like you there too. The way he said that last part, looking directly at me, made my breath catch. Mr. Callaway. Bruce. He corrected softly. Bruce? I said, testing his name on my tongue and finding it felt right in a way that scared me. I don't know if that's appropriate. I work for you. He took a step closer, then another, until we were sharing the same space, the same air. I'm not asking as your employer, Ronnie. I'm asking as someone who's come to value your company beyond the work you do. As someone who wants to know you better. The implications of that statement hung between us, heavy with meaning we couldn't quite acknowledge. My professional instincts screamed at me to refuse politely, to maintain boundaries, to remember my place. But another part of me, the part that had been responding to his lingering glances and careful attention, wanted to say yes more than I'd wanted anything in a long time. What time? I heard myself ask. His face lit up with a smile that was worth every complication this decision might bring. 7. And Ronnie, dress casual. It's really just a relaxed dinner. The next evening found me standing in front of my closet having a minor crisis. What did casual mean to a billionaire? Were jeans too casual? Was a button-down too formal? I finally settled on a navy blue shirt and dark jeans, hoping I'd struck the right balance. When I arrived at the mansion, it had been transformed. Soft lighting gave everything a warm glow, and subtle decorations added festive touches without being overwhelming. Owen greeted me at the door with a whoop of excitement. Ronnie, you actually came. This is awesome. His genuine happiness eased some of my nervousness. I handed him a carefully wrapped present, a gaming accessory I'd noticed him eyeing during one of my visits. "Happy birthday, Owen. 12's a big year." The other guests were already there. I recognized Emma, Bruce's younger sister, from photos in the house. She had the same dark hair and sharp features, though her eyes were kinder, more open. Her husband Marcus greeted me warmly. Richard, Bruce's business partner, was there with his wife Angela. Everyone was polite, welcoming, but I could feel their curiosity. They were wondering who I was, what I was doing at this intimate family gathering. But then Bruce appeared at my side, his hand briefly touching the small of my back as he guided me to the dining room, and the message was clear. I was here because he wanted me here. That simple gesture spoke volumes. Dinner was surprisingly relaxed. The food was incredible, clearly catered by professionals, but the atmosphere was warm and familial. Bruce had seated me next to him, and throughout the meal he kept including me in conversations, explaining inside jokes, making sure I never felt like an outsider. His attention was subtle but constant, refilling my water glass before I had to ask, passing dishes my way, asking my opinion on topics being discussed. It felt natural in a way that probably should have worried me more than it did. After dinner, while others moved to the living room for cake and presents, Bruce caught my arm gently. "Walk with me." He led me through the house and out to a balcony I hadn't seen before. The city spread out below us, a carpet of lights against the darkening sky. A cool breeze carried the scent of autumn leaves and distant rain. "Thank you for coming tonight," Bruce said quietly, standing close enough that our shoulders almost touched. "It means more than you probably realize. Thank you for inviting me, though I have to admit, I'm still not entirely sure why you did." He turned to face me fully, and in the soft light from the house, his expression was open in a way I'd never seen before. Vulnerable. Honest. "Because over the past 2 weeks, you've become more than just someone who works for me. You've become someone I look forward to seeing. Someone whose presence makes my day better. Someone I find myself thinking about when you're not here." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Bruce, I know this is complicated," he continued, his voice low and intense. "I know there are about a dozen reasons why this is a terrible idea, but I can't keep pretending I don't feel this, whatever this is between us." His hand moved slowly toward mine on the railing, giving me every chance to pull away. When I didn't, his fingers covered mine, warm and solid and real. "I feel it too," I whispered, the admission terrifying and freeing all at once. The space between us seemed to shrink without either of us consciously moving. His eyes searched mine, asking a question, seeking permission, and when I gave the smallest nod, he leaned in. The kiss was gentle, tentative, like we were both afraid of shattering this fragile moment. His lips were soft against mine, tasting faintly of wine and something sweeter. My free hand found its way to his chest, feeling his heart beating as fast as mine. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. "Stay," he murmured. "After everyone leaves, just talk with me. I'm not ready for you to go yet." I should have said no. Should have established boundaries, remembered professionalism, protected myself from the inevitable complications. But when I looked into his eyes and saw my own feelings reflected back at me, I couldn't make myself care about should. "Okay," I agreed. "I'll stay." The following weeks dissolved into something I couldn't quite name. Bruce and I existed in this strange liminal space, more than employer and employee but not quite openly together. We'd share lingering glances across rooms, our fingers would brush when passing tools, and sometimes late at night he'd text me something simple like "thinking of you" that would keep me awake for hours. Owen had started treating me like extended family, dragging me into movie nights and asking my opinion on everything from video games to school projects. Bruce would sit beside me on the couch during these evenings, our thighs touching, sharing popcorn while his son remained blissfully unaware of the electricity crackling between us. But we never talked about it, never defined what was happening. That kiss on the balcony hung between us like a secret we were both too afraid to examine. On a late Saturday evening, I found myself still at the mansion, installing Owen's new virtual reality system. The setup was complex, requiring precise calibration and extensive testing. By the time I finished, it was nearly 10, and Owen had long since gone to bed. The house had settled into that particular silence that only comes when everyone else is asleep. I was packing my equipment when I heard footsteps. Bruce emerged from his study, and the sight of him stopped me cold. He'd loosened his tie, unbuttoned the top of his shirt, and his hair was slightly mussed like he'd been running his fingers through it. He looked exhausted and absolutely devastating. "You're still here?" he said, holding a crystal tumbler with amber liquid catching the light. "Just finished. Owen's going to love the new system. Stay for a drink." It wasn't quite a question, but not quite a command either. I hesitated, my professional instincts warring with what I actually wanted. "Bruce, please." The vulnerability in that single word undid me completely. We ended up in his study, a room I'd only glimpsed before. It was all dark wood and leather, filled with books and framed photographs. He poured me 2 fingers of whiskey, something expensive and smooth, that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. We sat on opposite ends of the leather couch, maintaining a careful distance that felt more like protection than propriety. "Rough day?" I asked, breaking the silence. "Rough month," he corrected, taking a slow sip. "Board meetings, merger negotiations, shareholders questioning every decision. Coming home to Owen helps. Having you here helps more than you know." The admission made my chest tight. "I'm glad I can make things easier." He set down his glass and turned to face me fully, his expression intense. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Why are you single?" The question caught me so off guard, I nearly choked on my whiskey. "What? You're brilliant with technology, patient with Owen, kind, funny, and..." His eyes traced my face slowly, deliberately. "Stunning. So why hasn't someone claimed you already?" "Stunning." He thought I was stunning. "I guess the right person never came along." I said carefully, "My work keeps me moving around a lot, and I learned the hard way that people don't always stick around when things get difficult." "Someone hurt you?" It wasn't a question, he read it in my voice. My posture, the way I'd looked away. "My ex," I admitted. 2 years ago, I was going through a rough patch financially, struggling to keep my business afloat. He said I was too much work, that he needed someone more stable, left me when I needed him most. Bruce's expression darkened, his jaw clenching. "He was a fool." I laughed softly, without humor. "Maybe." "No. Absolutely." He shifted closer, closing some of the distance between us. "Anyone who couldn't see your worth during your hardest moments didn't deserve you during your best ones. You're remarkable, Ronnie. That guy just lacked the courage to appreciate it." Emotion welled up in my throat, unexpected and overwhelming. "Why are you saying this?" "Because someone should have told you a long time ago." His hand reached out slowly, cupping my cheek with a gentleness that contrasted with the intensity in his eyes. "I see you. Really see you. Everything you are, everything you're capable of. It's extraordinary." My breath came unsteady. "We shouldn't do this. You're my employer. You have a son to think about. There are so many reasons." "You're scared," he interrupted gently, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. "So am I. Terrified, actually. But I'm done pretending I don't want this. Don't want you." Time seemed to suspend. In that moment, nothing existed except us. This room, this truth we'd been dancing around for weeks. "I want this too," I whispered. "So much it scares me." Bruce leaned in, giving me every opportunity to pull away, to change my mind, to be sensible. But I met him halfway. This kiss was different from the one on the balcony. That had been tentative, questioning. This was certain. His lips moved against mine with purpose, one hand tangling in my hair while the other pulled me closer. I gripped his shirt, feeling his heart racing against my palm, matching the frantic rhythm of my own. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. "Stay tonight," he murmured against my lips. "Not like that, just stay. Talk with me. Let me fall asleep knowing you're here." Every rational thought screamed that this was moving too fast, that I should establish boundaries, protect my heart. But looking into his eyes, seeing my own feelings reflected there, I couldn't bring myself to care about rational. "Okay," I agreed. "I'll stay." We spent the rest of the night on that couch, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about Owen's mother, who'd left when their son was 4, unable to handle the pressure of being with someone so constantly in the public eye. I told him about my dreams of opening my own tech repair shop someday, about the small-town kid who never imagined ending up in a billionaire's study. As dawn started painting the sky pink and gold, Bruce's head rested on my shoulder, his breathing deep and even. My fingers traced idle patterns on his arm, and I realized with startling clarity that I'd already fallen, completely, irreversibly, hopelessly in love with Bruce Callaway. The next few weeks felt like living in a beautiful dream I was terrified of waking from. Bruce and I were together, officially, though only in private. We'd decided to wait before telling Owen, wanting to be absolutely certain this relationship could withstand reality before involving his son. We stole moments wherever we could find them. Quick kisses in empty hallways, his hand finding mine under the dinner table, late-night phone calls that lasted until sunrise. It was exhilarating and exhausting, this constant awareness of keeping our secret, but secrets have a way of revealing themselves. I was at the mansion on a Wednesday afternoon, repairing Owen's laptop after he'd accidentally corrupted the operating system. I was so focused on recovering his files that I didn't hear Emma enter the room until she spoke. "Ronnie, right?" I looked up to find Bruce's sister studying me with sharp, intelligent eyes. She smiled, but there was something calculating in her expression. "Yes, ma'am. Just fixing Owen's laptop. You've been around quite a bit lately." She sat down across from me, crossing her legs elegantly. "My brother mentioned hiring you for regular maintenance, but I have to say you seem to be more than any contractor I've ever known." My heart rate spiked. "Bruce, Mr. Callaway has been very satisfied with my work." "I'm sure he has." Emma's smile widened slightly. "You know, I've known my brother for 32 years. I can read him better than anyone. And lately, there's been something metant about him. He's lighter, happier. That change started right around the time you appeared." I didn't know what to say. Denying it felt wrong, but confirming it felt dangerous. "So tell me truthfully," Emma continued, leaning forward. "What's really going on between you and Bruce?" The direct question made my mind race. Should I lie? Deflect? But as I looked at her expectant face, something told me she already knew. I started, then stopped. "It's complicated." Emma's expression softened immediately. "Relax. I'm not here to judge or cause problems. Actually, I'm relieved. Bruce has been alone for far too long since Owen's mother left. If you're the reason he's smiling again, then I'm grateful." The tension drained from my shoulders. "Thank you. That means more than you know. But Ronnie," her tone turned serious, "be prepared. Bruce's world is incredibly complicated. There are people, shareholders, business rivals, even family friends who won't understand or approve. Some will see you as an opportunist, others will try to use your relationship to undermine him. Are you ready for that?" Her warning echoed in my mind for days. I thought about it during repair jobs, during quiet evenings with Bruce, during lunch with Owen. The idea that our relationship could hurt Bruce's reputation or his business made my stomach churn. But I wasn't prepared for how quickly Emma's prediction would come true. 4 days later, my phone exploded with notifications. Texts, calls, social media alerts, all at once, like someone had detonated a bomb in my digital life. With shaking hands, I opened the first news alert. The headline made my blood run cold. "Billionaire CEO Bruce Callaway's secret romance with young tech worker revealed." Below it was a photo, Bruce and me in the mansion garden, standing close, his hand on my lower back, both of us smiling. We looked happy. We looked like exactly what we were. Two people falling in love. The article speculated wildly about our relationship, questioning my motives, suggesting I was using Bruce for money or social climbing. The comments section was vicious. "Gold digger. Obviously using him. Poor man doesn't see he's being manipulated." Each word felt like a physical blow. I called Bruce immediately, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold the phone. "I saw it," he said before I could speak, his voice tight with controlled fury. "I've already called my legal team. We'll handle this." "Bruce, maybe we should—" "Don't," he interrupted firmly. "Don't you dare suggest we end this because some tabloid printed garbage. I won't let them dictate my life or who I care about." His conviction steadied me, but only until that evening when I arrived at the mansion and found Owen waiting. His face streaked with tears and twisted with anger. "Is it true?" he demanded the moment he saw me. "Are you dating my dad?" Bruce appeared behind him, looking stricken. "Owen, we should talk about this I'm asking Ronnie." Owen's voice cracked with emotion. "We're supposed to be friends. Why didn't you tell me?" I knelt down to his eye level, my heart breaking at the betrayal in his eyes. "Yes, Owen. It's true. Your dad and I care about each other deeply. We wanted to tell you ourselves, in the right way when we were sure this was real and lasting. But you lied. You both lied to me." Tears spilled down his cheeks. "I thought we were friends, Ronnie. Friends don't lie." "We are friends," I said gently. "That's exactly why we waited. We didn't want to confuse you or hurt you if things didn't work out. What if you leave?" The question came out as barely a whisper. "What if you leave like Mom did?" And there it was, the real fear beneath his anger. Not that I was dating his father, but that I might abandon them both. "Owen," I said softly, reaching for his hand, "I can't promise that life will always be perfect or easy, but I promise you this. I'm not going anywhere. Not from your dad, and not from you. You're both too important to me." He searched my face for a long moment, then threw his arms around me, sobbing into my shoulder. I held him tight, looking up at Bruce over his son's head. Bruce's eyes were bright with unshed tears, his expression raw with emotion. Later that night, after Owen had calmed down and we'd all sat together in the kitchen eating pizza and talking honestly about everything, I realized something crucial. The world knowing didn't matter. The comments, the speculation, the judgment, none of it mattered compared to this, to Bruce's hand in mine, to Owen's trust slowly rebuilding, to the family we were becoming. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. The months following the media exposure tested us in ways I'd never imagined. Photographers occasionally lurked outside the mansion gates. Business contacts questioned Bruce's judgment. Social media dissected every public appearance, but Bruce stood firm, issuing a clear, unequivocal statement that his personal life was his choice and he was proud to be with me. Slowly, the attention faded. People found new scandals to obsess over. Life settled into something resembling normal, or at least our version of normal. Owen adjusted better than expected. After our honest conversation, he'd become almost protective of our relationship, proudly introducing me to his friends as Ronnie, my dad's boyfriend who fixes everything. He'd even started making jokes about having two dads, testing the waters of this new family dynamic with the resilience of youth. Bruce and I fell into comfortable rhythms. Sunday morning breakfast together, helping Owen with homework, date nights when Owen stayed with Emma. It felt real in a way that made my earlier life seem hollow by comparison. On a Saturday morning in early spring, Bruce surprised both Owen and me with an impromptu trip to the park. Not a fancy private venue or exclusive event, just the public park with its playground and duck pond and families spreading picnic blankets on the grass. We spent the afternoon flying kites. Owen had picked out, eating ice cream that dripped down our hands, and laughing at Bruce's terrible attempts at throwing a frisbee. For a few hours we were just like any other family enjoying the weekend sunshine. As evening approached and the sky began its shift towards sunset, Owen raced off to the swings while Bruce took my hand and led me to a quiet bench, overlooking the pond. "I have something for you," he said, his voice carrying an unusual nervous edge. He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket, and my heart stopped. "Before you panic," he said quickly, seeing my expression, "it's not what you think." "Not exactly." He opened the box to reveal a simple silver band, elegant and understated. "It's a promise ring." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "Ronnie, I know we can't legally marry everywhere yet, and I know some people would say this is too fast, but I've never been more certain of anything." His voice strengthened with conviction. "You walked into my life to fix a broken game console, and somehow you fixed everything else too. You brought light back into this house. You gave Owen someone else to trust. You made me remember what it feels like to truly connect with another person." Tears blurred my vision. "Bruce, this ring is a promise," he continued, taking it from the box. "A promise that no matter what challenges we face, no matter what the world thinks, I'm yours, completely. And I hope, God, I hope, that you'll be mine." He slid the ring onto my finger and it fit perfectly, like it had been made specifically for this moment. Yes, I whispered, then louder, pulling him into a kiss. Yes, absolutely yes. When we broke apart, Owen was standing a few feet away, having apparently witnessed the entire exchange. His face split into the biggest grin I'd ever seen. "Does this mean Ronnie's staying forever?" he shouted, bouncing on his toes with excitement. "Forever," Bruce confirmed, pulling his son into our embrace. The three of us stood there on that park bench as the sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, and I felt something shift into place deep in my chest. This was what I'd been searching for my entire life without knowing it. Not wealth or status or security, though those were nice, but belonging. Being chosen. Having a place where I was wanted, not for what I could do but for who I was. "I love you both," I said, the words feeling both terrifying and natural. "So much." "We love you too," Owen said immediately. Squeezing me tighter, Bruce pressed a kiss to my temple. "More than you'll ever know." As we walked back to the car, Owen running ahead to chase the last few fireflies of the evening, Bruce kept my hand firmly in his. "No regrets?" he asked softly. I looked at him, this brilliant, complicated, beautiful man who'd taken a chance on a random repair guy, and then at Owen who'd opened his heart despite his fears. I thought about my tiny apartment I barely lived in anymore, about my struggling business that had transformed into something stable and fulfilling, about the family I'd found in the most unexpected place. "Not a single one," I answered honestly. "You? Only that I didn't meet you sooner." The ring on my finger caught the fading sunlight, a constant reminder of promises made and futures planned. I'd walked into that mansion months ago thinking I was just fixing a broken console. Instead, I'd found something I hadn't even known was broken. My own life. My own heart. My own capacity for love. I'd fixed gadgets and gaming systems and home theater setups. But really, we'd fixed each other. Bruce had given me security and love and a place to belong. I'd given him trust and hope and the courage to open his heart again. Owen had given us both the gift of his acceptance and affection. Together, we'd built something new, something real, something worth fighting for. As we drove home through the darkening streets, Owen chattering excitedly about dinner plans and Bruce's hand warm in mine, I realized this wasn't an ending at all. It was just the beginning of everything I'd never dared to dream possible. And I couldn't wait to see where we'd go from here.